lot of adjectives there describing this film, but it's also an extraordinary piece of work. It's about Marion Cotillard, who's a trainer of killer whales who has an accident, and then an unlikely love story develops between her and this kind of rather bruising guy who does bare-knuckle fighting. So it's about a woman attracted by two wild beasts and by wild beasts, both in the water and on the land. And the man who came up with this story is the filmmaker Jacques Audiard. So please welcome Jacques Audiard and his star Matthias Schoenaerts.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Do sit down, Matthias.
Hello.
Welcome to Apple Store.
Oui.
All around the world. So I'm going to start with some questions for them, and then I invite you to take part as well and ask them any questions that you have about this film, which presumably most of you haven't seen, or the rest of their careers. So we'll start with you, Jacques. Congratulations on Rust and Bone.
Yes,
now, this was a short story, is that right? It's a short story by an author called Craig Davidson.
Yes.
Where did you discover that story, and what made you attracted to it? Because even if you do know that story, I think that you won't recognise it from your film.
Je peux parler en français?
Can he speak in French and I'll translate for him? Is that okay?
It's hard for me to speak in English. So, mon film précédent se passait en prison.
His film before this was, as I mentioned to you, A Prophet. It was in prison.
Il y avait que des hommes.
There was just men.
Il n'y avait pas d'espace, pas de lumière.
There was no space, no light, no air.
Pas d'amour.
No love.
Et donc j'ai eu forcément envie d'un autre film qui soit une histoire d'amour avec de l'espace et de la lumière.
So he really wanted to make a love story that had a lot of light and space and a feel to the opposite.
J'avais très envie aussi de travailler sur un personnage féminin, avec une actrice. Voilà.
And I was desperate to work with a feminine person, a character, as well as an actress as well. I'd been surrounded by too many men.
Et c'est après seulement que j'ai lu le recueil de nouvelles de Craig Davidson.
And that's when I read the collection of short stories by Craig Davidson.
Et en fait, il y avait deux nouvelles qui me plaisaient.
And there were two stories in this collection which I liked.
Mais il n'y avait pas d'histoire d'amour du tout.
But actually neither of them were love stories anyway.
Et on a plaqué l'histoire d'amour sur les deux nouvelles.
So I was desperate to make this love story, so I put the love story on these two stories which I liked to make it what I wanted. They're English stories. Craig Davidson is a
Anglo-Canadien.
He's an Anglo-Canadian writer.
From Toronto.
From Toronto, no less. So, but he wrote in English.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you put the love story on this.
Yes.
On this. Because,
with my tools.
Right. Because I'm right. In one of the stories, they're male. You put the love story. You put a female character in there.
C'était la nouvelle dans le Marineland avec les orques. C'était un personnage masculin.
So there is a story about the person who works in this Marineland water park, but it's a male person who works with the killer whales.
Il ne perdait qu'une seule jambe.
And he only loses one leg in that.
Et quand on en a fait une femme, on lui a coupé les deux jambes.
So when I was going to make a female character, I thought, right, I'm going to cut off both her legs. Why not? And it's also Marion Cotillard you're going to cut off both legs. I wonder, when you have a big star...
Quitte à avoir une grosse vedette, vaut mieux lui couper les deux jambes, ça coûte le même prix.
Right, it's the same price whether you've got a big star or not, whether you're going to cut one or two legs off, so you might as well do two. I mean, when you know you have a big star... Because before you've worked with Vincent Cassel and Manuel de Vos, but Taha Rahim was the star of A Prophet. Marion is probably your most established world star.
Mais ça, moi quand je pense à elle, c'est d'abord ça fait un moment que j'ai envie de travailler avec elle.
So I've been wanting to work with her for quite a while.
Je savais qu'on se croiserait un jour ou l'autre.
And I knew that someday or other we would come across each other.
Et que dans la vie en rose, elle faisait des trucs à certains moments que c'est la seule à pouvoir faire ça.
And I saw when she was playing Edith Piaf in La Vie en Rose, which she won her Oscar for, that she was doing things that really she was the only actress that could possibly do things like that. So I knew that I wanted her.
C'est ça que je voulais en fait.
And that's what I wanted to recapture. That is it a physical thing?
C'est des choses de jeu, des choses très expressionnistes, presque de trance.
So she's like, it's a physical thing. She almost goes into a trance, she goes into a trance, or she puts the viewer into a trance.
C'est quoi la différence, pardon, excuse-moi?
So it's she as an actress.
Non, c'est qu'elle a une façon dans certaines scènes elle se met dedans d'une façon qui n'est pas du tout psychologique, qui est très 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 physique.
So she's got a way of acting that she puts herself into the scene, which loses herself entirely, and it's not cerebral, it's totally physical as well. I think she has the same reaction for an audience. We can
c'est
lose
possible,
ourselves.
oui, mais j'espère.
Yeah, and that's the idea. We don't have Marion with us right now, but we do have Matthias, who is her co-star in this. For you, Matthias, a huge part for you to play opposite Marion Cotillard, to be such a physical part as well. He plays a bare-knuckle boxer, a man who's difficult to love in a way, but that's his problem. Tell us about your character.
Well, I think you could describe Ali as being emotionally handicapped, but at the same time, there's something very sincere about him. It's a guy who doesn't edit himself. He just acts and reacts, and he's very instinctive and intuitive about everything. And that goes either way. That goes bad and it goes good. But I think his sincerity is quite... I think it's appealing. I think it's a beautiful quality.
Mm-hmm. Because he's always true to himself. He doesn't do anything that... he doesn't care what anyone thinks.
No, exactly. He doesn't care what anyone thinks. What you see is what you get. There's no hidden agenda. There's no second thought. There's no bad intention. There's no good intention. There just is.
Mm. That's kind of something you have to play as an actor, but as a human, it's quite difficult to do that in life and get away with it.
Yes, and that's why we should admire Ali. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if we should admire him, but he has a quality which is very genuine and which is touching, I think.
Mm-hmm. And talk to us about filming it with Marion Cotillard, because obviously the relationship, she has two legs cut off, and he has he is a very physical man. So the relationship is about this is a love story that is, they learn to become depend on each other in some way.
Well, basically they discover love, because by the beginning of the film, both of them are kind of lost on a love level. He's just a solitary guy living a miserable life, and she's a guy. She's not a guy. She's a girl.
She's in the novel.
Yeah, and she's in a relationship which is not going quite too well. There's no love in there, and then destiny comes around and unites these two people, and slowly but surely they'll discover love.
Mm-hmm. Talk to us about filming the piece. Where did you do it? Where did you shoot it? I saw the filming in Cannes. It premiered in Cannes, and I was watching it, and I was thinking it was one of those rare instances you're watching, you're going, that's just outside. That's in Cannes. That's just outside the cinema. That's where the beach is. So you were there?
Yeah, we were shooting in the Côte d'Azur.
Oui.
Cannes, Nice, Juan-les-Pins, which is a really nice area.
Yeah.
And I think it contrasts pretty well with the grittiness of the film.
Yeah, because everyone knows that as a kind of holiday resort, slightly glamorous. And
it would have been an
story.
evident choice to set this story in like the suburbs, and be very miserable about it. And I think that the fact we have the sea, we have the sun, just opens it up, and gives this relationship a totally different energy.
Mm-hmm. So there's no cynicism in the move, Jacques, to shoot in Cannes just so that you could get in the official selection of the Cannes competition.
Mais si je dis que j'avais fait ça pour être à 30 mètres du palais, ça va pas, je vais passer pour un drôle de bonhomme.
He said, if I said I was going to do this to be 30 yards from the famous Palais du Cinéma, that no one would respect me very much.
Non, ça on a filmé là-bas parce que le Marineland était là-bas.
So the real place where you see in the clip there the killer whales and the marine land is there actually.
C'est à Antibes.
In Antibes, just down the coast.
Et en fait, la plage, pourquoi on s'est mis près de la plage de Cannes, près du festival? Parce que c'est la seule plage où il y a un peu de sable, un peu plus de sable. Sinon, ce sont des plages très étroites.
So it's quite a practical reason, really, that one of the only beaches on that whole coast that there's enough sand to film on is the one that's right by the Palais des Festivals in Cannes, where the film festival takes place every year. So it's a practical choice. In fact, we've got a scene. Now we're talking about that. We've got a scene sort of set on the Croisette, the famous thoroughfare of Cannes, with Matthias's character talking to Marion about why they behave the way they do, why they do the jobs they do, and how they just. So if we can have a clip from Rust and Bone. And the picture we could see there is sort of just before then he reintroduces her to the sea, where she kind of learns to feel the physical world again after her accident. It's a very physical piece. It's a film about texture and bruising and pain and I suppose eventually love. But it takes a while to get to the heart. This film. It's more. First of all, we have to get through a lot of physical pain. Is that what attracted you to that seems to me the theme of this film, Jacques?
Oui,
is that
je
what
pense,
you were
oui, c'est ça,
following?
oui. Effectivement, ce sont deux personnes qui ont. Ce sont vraiment deux corps. Il y a deux corps, un corps meurtri, un corps qui se bat. Il y avait quelque chose effectivement d'immédiatement très physique.
So we're talking about two bodies, one that's handicapped.
C'est pour ça en plus il y a ce rapport aussi avec les animaux. C'est la même chose, tout ça. C'est un truc.
And then the other one who likes to fight, who is a fighter, and it really brings us back to the kind of bestial element. They're kind of like two animals in a way. Was that when you were acting? Was there I know some actors like to kind of imagine an inner animal. You're a lion or a tiger or a bird or a mouse. Was there an element of that in the? Do you do that sort of acting?
Well, it reminds me of the Academy of Dramatic Arts, where you have to perform an egg. You go like, okay, well, why not? I didn't.
In your auditions? You mean in the auditions?
Yeah, they make you do all that kind of funny stuff. Yeah. They go like, be a broccoli. I didn't. I did it for a previous film, which was called Bullhead.
Oh, Bullhead, yeah, which is...
That was... Yeah, I related to some animals for that. But no, for this film, I didn't... No, I was all about being as instinctive and intuitive as possible.
You do a lot of fighting, and we saw in the clip, the trailer, that he's a sort of bare knuckle boxer in there. Did you do a lot of training for that? You look pretty good. You look pretty. I'm not going to insult you today because you look quite useful with your fists.
Well, we make it look like we know something about it.
That's acting.
So, yeah, that's it. No, I got in the boxing gym for a couple of months to feel the rhythm and get your body language right and just so that your body radiates it. And of course I had to gain weight. Jacques wanted me to look strong but not fit, so I had to grow a belly. So I had to eat a lot of junk, like Haagen-Dazs and all that kind of.
Yeah. Who prescribed you the diet?
I just went for the nasty stuff. I was okay. Let's buy a whole pack of Haagen-Dazs and just eat it all day, and something will happen eventually. Something's gonna change, I'm sure.
So you sat there at home. I'm not going out. I'm just watching football. I'm watching films.
Yeah. Don't think. Eat.
Eat.
Just eat. You became like a Jewish mother. Eat. Have you eaten yet?
Yes.
What the fight scenes are kind of they're very important scenes. But were they very choreographed? Did you know exactly what you're doing? And was there a...
Je voulais que ce soit chorégraphié, mais pas trop. Je voulais que ce soit très réel, quand même, le plus réaliste possible.
So I wanted as much realism as possible, not too choreographed, and yet to be safe, they have to be slightly.
Je voulais que ce soit brutal, violent, que ça mette en valeur le courage du personnage d'Ali.
So I wanted a brutal violence that really put his courage to the test and showed us. Did you... I love boxing films. I don't know if you studied some fight films to get...
Est-ce que j'ai... non, parce qu'il y avait aucun film qui pour moi correspondait à ce qu'on voulait faire. Moi aussi, j'adore les films de boxe, j'adorais Raging Bull, ces films-là. Mais ça ne correspondait pas à ce que je voulais faire. Ce qu'on a plutôt regardé, ce sont les documentaires de Vale-Tudo, vous savez, de bataille, comment on appelle ça, de free fight.
Okay, so he too loves boxing films, but actually, I mean, he loves Raging Bull, for example, but boxing films, none of them had really what they were going for here. They wanted something a bit more brutal, and actually we watched YouTube?
It's on YouTube.
Video on YouTube of free fighting. I don't know what that is, but...
C'est de la... Comment tu le qualifierais? le valet tout dos, le free fighting.
Well, it's just everything is permitted.
Voilà, valet tout dos, tout est possible.
Okay. Oh, Valet Tudo. Is
Brésilien.
Brazilian.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brazilian.
Très 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 violent.
And you can use arms, knees,
Everything.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's kind of repulsive.
But it's
brutal.
organized.
Yeah, it's organized, and of course you have the backstreet versions of it, like some wildcats trying to do the same thing they see on TV, and just
The other aspect that we've all seen the clips of is Marion Cotillard with killer whales, orcas. Did you work with? Did you study killer whales, or how do you work with such? How do you film such beasts, unpredictable beasts?
C'était comment le travail de Marion avec
Yes, how did she work with, and how did you?
Marion, elle est allée une semaine travailler avec eux, mais c'est pas tant pour apprendre les chorégraphies que pour que les animaux s'habituent à elle.
So she went to Marineland for a week, not really to learn the show, the choreography, but so that the animals would get used to Marion Cotillard. I don't suppose the killer whales sit around watching La Vie en Rose very often.
Oui, bien
so
sûr.
they don't know who she
Ils
is.
ont demandé des autographes.
Yeah. So they didn't want them running up and going, "Can I have your autograph, please?" They have to get used to.
Non, voilà,
Marion
ça c'est
Cotillard.
comme ça que ça s'est passé là-bas. Et après, quand on a filmé, j'ai dû filmer 4 spectacles d'un seul tenant dans la journée. Puis voilà,
So he was there. They
avec
had
4 ou
4
5
shows a
caméras.
day, and so you filmed real shows.
Yes,
with-
oui, tout
and
à
put
fait.
Marion in.
Oui,
in
dedans,
there.
oui, puisqu'elle avait appris toute la
So
chorégraphie.
the crowds we see were watching.
C'est
They
la
were,
vraie.
there, they were there to watch
Oui,
a real
absolument,
show.
absolument, c'est le public, absolument.
And did they know that Marion Cotillard would be
Non, ils
one
ne
of
voyaient
the-
pas, ils voyaient pas.
So they
Non,
didn't even see
c'est
her.
très très drôle ça. C'est que il y avait quand même une vedette un peu importante sur la plage du Marineland. Il y avait je sais pas combien de milliers de personnes et pour eux c'était normal.
So they did this normal show. There were 2,000 paying guests, and they just went to see a normal show with dolphins and killer whales. And
Yes.
actually, there was an Oscar-winning star there, and they had no idea that she was there because she was the tiny, insignificant creature. That's good. Yeah. Matthias, your character, he does a lot of running, a lot of physical sweating and work like this. Is that did you? I know actors can just do a little bit, but did you actually do a lot of that training as well? Running and jogging and
yeah, of course.
yeah, you do it.
Of course,
Because
yeah.
you could. I mean, an actor could just go like action, and you just come around the corner looking out of breath. But
Yeah.
are you the sort of actor that likes to?
Whatever works for every actor, it's different. But I like to just be if it requires a certain physicality, I rather just do it.
Yeah. Can we? I mean, the audience here might not know your work so much. Can we talk a little bit about where you're from and
Yeah,
how
of
you
course.
got into
Let's
acting?
go.
So you're Belgian by birth?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Antwerp and in Brussels for a couple of years.
Right, and now you resident in Antwerp?
Still living there.
Right.
Because it's right in the middle of everything. You got Paris, London, Berlin, Barcelona. Everything's so close. So.
And your film career today?
Tu crois que c'est le milieu du monde? You think
No,
that it's
but-
the middle,
no,
the
but
center of the world?
geographically,
It's
that's not what I'm
crazy.
saying. But geographically, it's exactly in the middle. It is.
It's very handy for transport links.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your early film work, your work has been in Belgian cinema.
yeah.
Belgian cinema.
Yeah.
For directors, do we know some of those directors that people will?
I don't know. I've never always been aware of where the films have been and where they traveled. So I don't know. You might know some. I don't know.
So when you start working in a small industry like the Belgian film industry, you know that there's the French language films that you could go to, and you obviously speak fantastic English, and I know you've been working in American cinema as well.
Yeah.
Was that always the idea as an actor, or you just started out going, I'll get work where I can, and
I just wanted everything to happen naturally, and so in a very natural way, I worked with Jacques because of Bullhead somehow.
So you saw him in this film Bullhead, Jacques? How did you know
Yes.
about Matthias? You saw him in this film
Yes.
Bullhead, which is not out in the UK
Wonderful
yet.
movie.
It's a terrific movie that I saw in the Berlin Film Festival. It's out in the UK in January. So November is this one for Rust and Bone, and then January is Bullhead for the Matthias Schoenaerts retrospective.
Yeah, already.
Exactly, it doesn't take long. So you saw him in that, and that because you're quite animalistic, you say in that one. That's what made you cast him in this.
Sorry.
That's what made you cast him in this. You saw
No,
him
in Bullet. Yes,
Bullet.
absolutely, definitely.
So when you were doing the film, that helps your international profile, I guess.
Well, it's just, and then we got Oscar nominated with Bullhead, and all of a sudden you're in the States, and people notice you, and so it happened in a very natural way. I never chased anything, and it feels good that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now, and I know you're filming you're filming in the States now?
No, we wrapped it up in June. It's called Blood Ties. It's Guillaume Canet, which is Marion's husband.
Marion Cotillard's husband you're working with now.
Yeah, and it's his first American feature film. And it features an amazing cast. We got Clive Owen, James Caan, Billy Crudup, Mila Kunis, Zoe Saldana, Marion Cotillard again. And so it's an amazing cast, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
Wow, that sounds like an excellent... No disrespect to Rust and Bone, but that sounds really good. What about you, Jacques? You have, I mentioned before, you won the BAFTA for The Beat My Heart Skipped, a BAFTA for A Prophet, which was Oscar nominated to both amazing films, which I love very much. When you think about how you follow them up, is there a pressure to do something different?
No.
A pressure to develop as an artist?
Une pression, tu dis?
Pressure to develop, yeah, as an artist. You think, oh, I've got to do this now, or I should do calm.
Non, je trouve que la difficulté dans ce métier, en ce qui me concerne moi, c'est de maintenir la curiosité. Et donc c'est quelque chose de personnel, ça n'a rien à voir avec...
So the difficulty for a filmmaker, I think, is always to maintain a curiosity. To push forward, that's the hard thing. Often, in these sessions, people ask, "I'm a first-time filmmaker. What advice do you have?" But I think with you, it's interesting. I'm a sixth-time filmmaker. What advice do you have? You know, I think it's difficult to keep doing different things.
Je crois qu'un conseil à donner.
Oui, je dis normally young filmmakers say, I want to make one film, and you know, what advice do you have? But I think with you, it interests me that you have to make a new style of film each time.
Oui, à chaque fois, oui, bien sûr, je pense, oui. Mais c'est un problème, comment, après, non, c'est ça, moi c'est maintenir une curiosité. Savoir où est la pertinence toujours du cinéma. On fait le cinéma, on ne fait pas le cinéma pour être dans les académies, on fait le cinéma pour des gens qu'on ne connaît pas,
The question is, why am I making film? What's the relevance of cinema? We don't make films to go to the Academy Awards and have awards, although that's nice, I'm sure. But why am I making cinema? What is the relevance for the audience of the films that we are making? And have you the answer?
À quoi?
So what is the relevance of cinema still?
C'est quoi la relevance?
The pertinence.
La pertinence, moi quand j'ai commencé à faire du cinéma il y a une vingtaine d'années, je pense que la réponse n'aurait pas été la même.
So when I started making films 20 years ago, I think that the answer to this question, what is pertinent, what is relevant about cinema, would have been a different answer.
C'est est-ce que le cinéma, aujourd'hui le cinéma n'a pas le monopole de la représentation du réel. Il faut le savoir quand on fait du cinéma.
So cinema doesn't have the monopoly right now on the representing what is real in the world.
Quand j'ai commencé, enfin il y a longtemps, à l'époque où moi j'ai découvert le cinéma, le cinéma était la seule façon de représenter le réel.
So when I first discovered cinema, when I even first started making cinema was easily the only way of representing reality.
Quand je regardais comment les informations à la télévision, on voyait les collures passer. Ça avait été fait avec un appareil de cinéma.
So, for example, when I was looking at the news on telly, it used to be used. Collure is
je sais pas comment on dit.
Do cinema techniques?
Oui. On voyait c'est de la pellicule qui défile.
It was shot on film. It was shot like cinema.
Voilà, et c'était la même machine.
So it was the same. They used the same machine.
C'était une machine qui était identique à celle qu'on utilisait pour faire du studio.
So you were using news techniques, and it was the same machine as they would use to make films.
Film, voilà.
But now?
Et maintenant, ça a changé. Ça n'est plus ça. Comment le cinéma n'a plus le monopole de la représentation du réel.
So cinema now doesn't have what
Je pense que par exemple, je pense que des exemples. Qu'est-ce qui fait que le cinéma ne s'intéresse plus majoritairement, par exemple, au réel. C'est la série télé qui a pris cette.
So, for example, TV series now have taken over from cinema as representing a reality. You mean those big Boardwalk Empire, Sopranos, The Wire.
Exactement, oui, ou comment, oui, c'est ça, The Wire, des choses comme ça, voilà. Il faut que le jeune cinéaste sache ça, voilà.
So any young cinema maker now doesn't have to be just aware of cinema; they have to be aware of the other forms of reality that are out there, including YouTube and
Bien sûr.
new media.
Oui, bien sûr.
So what is the challenge then of the young cineast to
Je ne sais pas où est
come up
déjà qu'il le sache, qu'il y pense tout le temps.
It's
Et
just that
ça
you're
sera à
not
lui de
always-
trouver les réponses.
Okay,
Moi, je
so-
ne sais pas les réponses.
Okay.
Je les cherche de temps en temps.
Okay, so a young cineast's duty is to kind of be aware of these things, to think of them all the time. He says, I don't have the answers. I do think of these things occasionally, but you're old
Mais quand
now.
on fait du cinéma... Oui, je suis très vieux. Merci. Thank you.
But your films always seem fresh.
Vous essayez de vous rattraper.
Wait. I'm trying to kind of make up for that. Yeah, but they do. But I mean, you even see from the trailers that we saw there that Jacques' films have interesting music, different choices of music, very bizarre. A mix of music. For this film is composed. The music is by Alexandre Desplat, who's like the composer in film, but he does Fantastic Mr. Fox, and he can do period films, and Jacques can use him for this film. But Jacques will also use some punk, some rave, some rap, and that always keeps things lively. How do you keep on top of what music you're going to use and when you're going to use it, and surprise people with that?
Parce que d'abord, j'ai une utilisation de la musique qui maintenant, depuis un certain temps, commence à... C'est assez régulier. C'est-à-dire que je fais composer de la musique de score par Alex pour les personnages.
So I got Alexander Desplat to make the score music to represent each character, a theme for each character.
Voilà, c'est les humeurs des personnages, sa musique suit plutôt les personnages.
So it's a music that follows them around.
Et j'utilise d'autres musiques pour plutôt pour l'histoire, pour raconter l'histoire, pour le temps, pour faire passer le temps. Voilà.
And the other music I use to help push the story along, to make us see the passage of time. See ready?
Oui.
Yeah. Including Katy Perry's.
Mais Katy Perry, c'est le.
Katy Perry, they say in French. That's Katy Perry too. That's Katy Perry.
Katy Perry. C'est la musique du show du Marineland.
And so in the show at Marineland, they use the Katy Perry's song.
Et donc les orques, 4 fois par jour, puisqu'ils ont 4 shows par jour, entendent Katy Perry.
So these poor killer whales, 4 times a day, have to listen to Katy Perry music to make them jump.
Et de temps en temps, ils se vengent sur un dresseur.
And sometimes they take revenge on one of the trainers, just because they've listened to too much Katy Perry. Poor things. We all like Katy Perry. Actually, I like that
No, mais
song.
j'aime
It's a great
Katy
song.
Perry.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we like Katy Perry, by the way, in case she's watching, which she probably is. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my intro to the world of Jacques Audiard and to Matthias Schoenaerts. Do you have any questions about the future of cinema, which Jacques will obviously answer, know exactly where it's headed, and to Matthias Schoenaerts? Any questions great to receive? Just put your hands up and we can help to answer them. Gentlemen here, nice, quick off the mark.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Daniel.
Daniel?
Daniel.
Hi,
yes.
Daniel.
Just a question. Obviously, I haven't seen the film because it only opens in a couple of weeks' time here. But the characters seem to be meeting in very raw, very painful circumstances, and that's how they discover each other. Now, when you're filming, and I don't know how well you knew each other, does it help to maybe not rehearse too much, so it gives you the opportunity to discover the other person as you go along in the story?
Traduis-moi, s'il te plaît.
Okay, just 1 second, I'll translate.
Sorry
to
if that
Jacques.
was
No,
too-
no,
So
go
he's
on.
thinking, c'est a
Go
good
on, go on,
question.
go on.
He says that les personnages sont très bruts, très raw. Est-ce que ça aide de faire des répétitions, de découvrir les personnages en tournant, ou parce que ça vous donne l'occasion de te rapprocher à eux pendant que tu travailles?
C'est que comment ce film-là, par rapport aux autres, normalement, je travaille longtemps avant avec les comédiens.
So usually I do work for a long time in advance with my actors.
Et là, il s'avère que pour les conditions de tournage, je devais tourner au Marineland et j'avais vraiment des dates de tournage qui étaient
But this one, there was I only
très
had a
strict.
little window to film in Marineland, so I had a very kind of I was dictated to by the time window we had.
et que Marion était le contrat de Marion avait aussi des dates très
And Marion was very busy, and she had a very, very difficult window in her contract.
donc pour la première fois j'ai pas pu faire comme je faisais d'habitude.
So actually, this was the first time I wasn't normally allowed to work in the way that I like to work.
Alors j'ai découvert que c'était une autre façon de procéder.
So actually, I found out that this was possible and there was another side to the process.
Et que je me suis laissé un peu porter par voilà, je découvrais en faisant le film les personnages.
So I did, as you're right, as I was doing this, I did discover the characters while I was going along.
C'est assez intéressant.
Which he found very interesting.
And for you as an actor, Matthias?
Well, I worked with Jacques a couple of months before we started shooting. But with Marion, I just met her once. We had a reading. And then the second time, that was on set. But for that specific relationship, I think it was a good thing. And it was clear that from the very first rehearsal, something very organic happened. And it felt comfortable, and we were generous to one another. And we just enjoyed it. And ever since, it kept on growing, and we kept on discovering each other, and the way it happens in the film. So it was perfect the way it was.
Great, thank you very much.
It's interesting when that happens because you don't meet much, and your relationship grows as the film is being made. But you don't make the film in order. You know, you film the different scenes at different times. Is that difficult as an actor to come because you've got better working with each other? Some scenes later down the line, although earlier in the film, will be different. How do you maintain that?
No, but also because Jacques also works in a very organic way. So when we shoot a scene, sometimes we end up shooting something totally different than what was written. And obviously that will influence the scene that comes after. And maybe the scene that comes after, we already shot it. So luckily, Jacques is very convincing to his producers, and he says, "I got to shoot that scene again."
Oh, so you will do that? You will say that it doesn't now work for the. So you
and every other producer would say, "No, you're not."
Yeah.
And then Jacques says, "Yes, you are."
Okay.
And so sometimes it happened that we shot the same scene a couple of times. Maybe because the first time the setting wasn't good, or the interpretation wasn't good, or something about the scene, the writing or something wasn't good. And so, a couple of scenes we shot like 3 to 4 times.
Et parfois, comme on sait qu'une scène n'est pas bonne uniquement quand on la voit jouer.
So sometimes you don't know a scene works or not until you've seen it played out in front of you.
Tu peux la lire 50 fois.
You can write it and read it 50 times.
Tu peux la jouer 50 fois autour de la table.
You can do it around a table
mais tout à coup, quand l'acteur sera debout, quand ça bougera, là, tu t'aperçois qu'elle est mauvaise. Elle marche pas.
You realize that it's bad, that it doesn't work.
Mais il faut recommencer jusqu'à ce que ça marche.
So what do? You rip it up?
On change le texte en fait. Je ne sais pas comment on procède. On change de texte, on change le lieu, on change les intentions.
So you have your writer on set with you?
Non, mais comme moi je ne regarde pas les rushs, tu sais, les dailies, je les regarde pas.
So Jacques, unusually for most filmmakers, I say this, unusually he doesn't look at the dailies, the rushes.
J'aime pas ça. Alors c'est mon scénariste et la monteuse, et ils regardent les rushs et puis ils me font des rapports tous les jours.
So his scriptwriter and his editor, they look at the dailies and they give you notes.
Notes, every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
So you just see your notes.
Yes, et je préfère parce que c'est de la synthèse.
So that gives him a kind of line through it, so you're always on top. Is that normal? I mean, is this something you arrived at? Is this your way of working? You don't know?
Oui, ça a presque toujours été comme ça.
Mais
je ne sais pas comment font les autres.
Right.
Je ne sais pas comment font les autres réalisateurs. Oh, sorry, my daughter. Non, comment je...
It's an iPhone.
It's an old one.
An old one. The iPhone 5 is available.
Et comment je ne sais pas comment font les autres réalisateurs. Moi, je sais que ça c'est très très vite. J'ai fait comme ça me convenait
He's a
mieux.
director, but actually he doesn't know how other directors work. I suppose it just strikes me after the 20 years of doing this job. Directors, they do their own thing. They very rarely go onto other people's sets to know how other people work. You, however, as actors, you work for a different director hopefully every 7 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So you're aware of how they work in different ways. So do you notice that? You think, oh, that's interesting. Jacques does this, and someone else does that.
I want to know.
Yeah. You want to know? No, well, every set is a different experience. And what is it? You want to know how I feel about Jacques?
No, well, that too is very nice to know. But no, how working with each time is someone new. Yeah, I suppose so.
Everyone has a different approach.
Yeah, but they don't know that. You know, Jackie's just realizing.
Yeah. That's what he told me, because we had an interview a couple of hours ago, and he said it's weird when I hear you talk about the way I work and the way you experienced it. I learn a lot about how I work.
Sinon, je sais pas.
If not, I've got no idea. You just do your own thing, and maybe the movies work and they don't, and
they don't have a reference towards other directors.
Yeah. So you were never one of these directors that read, David Lean books or studied at film school a bit. I mean,
Non, j'ai pas fait école, mais j'ai lu beaucoup lu de littérature sur le cinéma. Moi, j'étais un vrai cinéphile français des années 70.
French cinéphile from the 60s, new wave theory, cinéma d'auteur, auteur cinéma.
J'ai beaucoup lu.
You read and then you thought. Nah.
Sorry?
You read it and then you thought, nah, I'll do different.
Non, pas du tout. Non, je trouve que c'est très très bien. Moi, par exemple, je crois que on a écrit beaucoup sur le cinéma quand le cinéma était important.
Yeah, when cinema was important in France and the world, the French wrote a lot about cinema. They wrote
Maintenant, il faut se demander pourquoi on écrit moins.
Yeah, and now we have to ask why people write less about cinema. Is that because the films don't merit it?
Non, c'est parce que je pense que les médias ont changé.
Because media, we talk about it on, iTunes.
Je pense que tous les gens qui écrivaient aujourd'hui, on écrit sur les arts contemporains. Et le corpus critique, il est là-bas.
So the art of criticism is more on contemporary arts rather than perhaps on cinema. Although as a film critic, I have to kind of differ and kind of hope that
j'ai raison.
But he's right.
Oui.
I'm going to write about painting from now on. This is my last film interview. That's not true. But do you see yourself, now we mentioned it as a filmmaker, in the French tradition? Do you see yourself?
Je sais pas. Ça franchement, je trouve que ça, justement, c'est le travail, c'est à la critique de le dire où je suis.
Ah, so we do have a function.
Oui,
it's up to the film critics to decide what tradition.
Non, c'est ce que j'attends, et je sais pas, je ne le trouve pas forcément.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I don't know. Well, you'll have to see Jacques. Do you know Jacques Audiard's films? Is he, to you, a French filmmaker, a maker of? Because I mean, his last film, A Prophet, was a prison movie. Which is a very Hollywood, I suppose, US genre in some kind of way, but then Jacques puts a different French spin on it, I would say, or always playing with those expectations that we expect in genre, which is a kind of Hollywood thing, and then Jacques always puts different music on or different characters, and this one, Rust and Bone, is a romance. I think it would be. When I was watching the scenes of Marineland, I remember those disaster films of the 70s. Roller coaster, or whatever. There's always the roller is going to come, and George Segal will be there, and Steve McQueen will put the fire out, and there was a sense of those films. But of course, then you do something.
J'aurais adoré faire Jaws, moi.
You would have loved to make a disaster movie.
Non, mais j'aurais adoré ça.
Yeah.
I love Jaws.
Jaws, for example. So
Le Spielberg movie.
Spielberg. Yeah. So all of those American filmmakers, you obviously know them and respect them. And all the American filmmakers, you love that cinema as much?
Je sais pas.
You don't know if you like.
Non, je sais pas si j'aime tout ça. Je ne sais pas.
You don't know.
Non, mais comment j'aime Jaws de Spielberg.
But Spielberg, you like, of Jaws.
Jaws,
yeah. Yeah. And but the old Hollywood. French filmmakers love the westerns. They love the gangster films.
Oui, mais j'adorais le western aussi, beaucoup.
Westerns, anything. He likes anything.
Non, j'ai beaucoup aimé le cinéma.
Yeah, it's cinema in general. That's a very French aspect. Lady down here.
I've got a question for Matthias, and I wanted to know, so I haven't seen Rust and Bone, but I've seen Bullhead, which is a truly fascinating movie. And I want, there's a lot of similarities, I guess, between the two roles, but probably a lot of differences as well. And what was the most difficult for you? So the fighting and the physical aspect is fairly similar, I guess, in the two films, but there's more maybe interaction with Marion Cotillard, with your son, in this movie.
Well, to me, the characters are extremely different in the way they deal with life. And it's true that they express themselves way more through their body than verbally. But Ali is way more positive about life, whereas Jackie is more to the dark side of thoughts and feelings, and maybe leaning towards a depressed kind of being. And Ali's just taking life the way it comes. He's a carpe diem type of guy, and he's cool with it. He's happy about it. But what to me was,
What character is the most difficult for you to play?
I don't never think in terms of difficult. I think it's always a matter of finding balance in something that you want to portray, and trying to be as rich as possible in what you portray, and to be as nuanced as possible, and to be sincere about it. So every character has their own challenges. So I don't know what is the most difficult. That's not the way I look at it. They're both extremely challenging, as well as the character in Bullhead as Ali in Rust and Bone. They're extremely challenging because you can screw it up as well, and that's always, it's a very very vulnerable feeling, because you never know what choice is right. You just go with a feeling. You try to be authentic and sincere about it, and then you hope it ends up to be the right choice when you see the film. But you never know it before you do it. So, is that an answer? Yeah? Okay.
And now you'll have to decide. So you'll have to go and see Rust and Bone and decide whether he nails it, which I think he does. So when you see it, it's November the 2nd out in the UK. Same week, I think, out in the US. I'm not. Is that right?
Oui, I suppose.
Yeah. They're off to New York, I think, tomorrow to...
No,
not
at
tomorrow.
the end of the month.
At the end of the month, they're going to New York. So you've now had a little taster of Rust and Bone. It's been an absolute pleasure for me, and I hope it has been for you as well, to meet the filmmakers. My thanks to Jacques Audiard and to Matthias Schoenaerts.
Merci beaucoup. Merci. Merci.